Good morning, everyone. I'm Omri. This is work of a very big team. Ruth and Ashley sitting back there, and Hunter and Jerry is next to her. And all of our great grad students are not here with us, unfortunately. It's great to come after Stephanie. I really enjoyed the talk, but especially because the talks really fit nicely together. And you'll see what I mean in a second. So, to give you some background, this is how we define generosity for this project. So it's kind of more of a general definition. It's the virtue of giving, or the tendency or willingness to give to others. So it's like a step further maybe from the maternal caregiving into the more general, which fits better with our sample, which is basically anyone and everyone, not necessarily mothers or even women. And this is kind of the economic sense of it. These are the strategies that people have to share or not share the resources. So what we're doing in our studies is we're basically trying to understand what happens when you give people some certain amount of money and letting them make a decision if they want to share it with others or not. As Stephanie mentioned, there's a lot of research out there about generosity or caregiving or empathy or altruism. All these concepts are related, but there's not a lot about the underlying mechanism. This is what we're trying to do in our project. I'm going to try and go through 3 studies today and let you give you some idea of what we're finding so far with that. About generosity, about the ways to enhance it, and what happens, why is it working if it does. So what might promote generosity? We are basing our theoretical framework on the work of Dan Batson, who was a former colleague in KU, and that suggested that people tend to give to others or cooperate in games like we'll show here when they feel empathy. So when they feel the pain of someone else, when they understand someone else, and when they're in their shoes, they're more likely to give to someone else. Which suggests that if you have this other-oriented perspective, if you have this sense of altruism, someone else is suffering, someone else doesn't have as much as I do, that would make you more likely to give to this other person, especially if they're in a situation where they're suffering. What can we do to make them get into this mode in a way? How can we promote altruism or giving? In my work and others, we showed that basically if you prime a sense of security, if you make people feel more secure about themselves, about the world, that can make them focus less on themselves and more on others. So if you think about some of the tasks that Stephanie talked about, kind of like and the picture that she had, so she had a mother holding a baby, that would be one of the primes that we're actually using in our studies. Not in the studies I'm going to be talking about today, but in some of the other studies that you see here, and these ones, this is exactly the kind of security prime that we have. So we're trying to make people think about being embraced and taken care of. Someone is out there for you, and you're safe, and that makes them more likely to be likely to give to others. Attachment insecurity, which is kind of the opposite of that, especially attachment avoidance, we'll talk about more in a minute, is known to be associated with less pro-sociality. So people tend to volunteer less, caregive less, and have lower endorsement of values that are associated with giving and so on and so forth. So this leads us to the idea that if you expose people to primes of security, they engage in all of these behaviors and therefore also will be engaged in more generosity. Okay, so again, it's kind of like we're taking the idea that you can use whatever was developed back there in Bowlby's head about the connection between attachment and caregiving, and apply it to adults and say that if you feel secure, if you get rid of the stress in a way, you're much more likely to show this generous behavior. If you think about that, when you're feeling insecure, you're focusing on yourself, you're focusing on your own suffering, you're focusing on trying to protect yourself, so you're less likely to be able to invest any resources in other people. So in what we're doing in the studies is we're trying to help people get rid of this sense of stress or insecurity and open them up to the option of giving to others. So in the very first study, which we did, it's just a correlational study. We want to see what are the associations between attachment, style, and generosity. So as I said, attachment has these dimensions. One of them is anxiety, and this is usually anxiety about being abandoned or rejected. So people who are highly anxious, these are people that had maybe intrusive parents or parents that were there some of the times and not all the time. So they learned that they have to try really, really hard to get the attention of the parent. So they're always worried or preoccupied about the idea that they're going to lose the love or lose the attention that they need to keep making the signs of neediness and so on and so forth. The avoidant dimension is more about trying to avoid intimacy and closeness. These are the, if you made the babies that learn that it doesn't help to turn to the parent. You need to trust yourself, and you need to avoid from the help seeking, because actually when you're asking for help, the parent is likely to punish you for that. So in a way, these are two different mechanisms, two different strategies. One of them is about asking help all the time. One of them is not asking for help. And we want to see what happens when we correlate these two with two measures of generosity. One of them is the feel generous kind of like sense, which we assessed with the experience of generosity questionnaire by Sommerfield, and the other one is a measure that Chris developed, and it's about behaving generously. These are the DVs and IVs that we had in the study, and we expected mainly to see that avoidance, this sense of insecurity, would correlate negatively with generosity. Right? So the more avoidant you are, the less generous you'll be, the less generous you'll feel. We had about 125 people here. You can see their ages, and most of them are women. And as we expected, we did find this correlation between avoidance and the sense of generosity and behaving generosity. But we also have a surprising finding that attachment anxiety was somewhat correlated with behaving generously. So there was something about this sense of anxiety that people had. And the way that we explained it, we thought that anxious people tend to look all the time for reassurance. They want people to love them. They want people to care for them. They want people to know that they are there. So maybe they're giving help in a way, or they're inclined to give help to kind of try to get attention through that. So keep that in mind as we go through some of the other results, because this is something that was unexpected for us at the beginning, something that people didn't find before us as much, and we find again in some of the other studies. But with the correlation study, again, we look at things like directionality and causality. So next we look at some more of the experimental work, and we try to prime people with a sense of security or insecurity. Okay, so in study 2, we took participants either from the university or from the community. So we had flyers all over town and invited them to come and participate in the study. And then they came in and played these two decision-making games, which are called Task 1 and Task 2. And what we told them, the cover story was that they are logging into this consortium, which is all over North America, and they were playing games with a bunch of other people. We had a room dedicated for that. We had big signs in the room, and we went through this very kind of like elaborate process where they were shown a profile, which I'll show you in a second, and we took their pictures, we created their profile together with them. They had a small program that would show how it's connecting to the consortium, how many people are connected at the same time. And basically we were trying to let them to believe that they're actually interacting with real people and with a different person every time. Right? So every trial in the task, there are 80 trials, every trial in the task is supposedly happening with a different person, represented by a silhouette. So you can see here, this is a profile of one trial, this is the name, her age, she's a female, this is her major, and she's from the University of Florida. Okay, so we have 160 different profiles for the two games, 80 trials in each one of them. Before each trial happened, we actually had a priming procedure. We exposed them to one of 3 primes. So it was either a secure prime, so things about words like love and dependable. It could be neutral prime, which words like clam, ketchup, and insecure prime, which was like abandoned, rejected. So again, this is kind of to increase the sense of insecurity, and this is to increase the sense of security. The dependent variable that we had was the amount of money given, and as I said, the 2 tasks were a little bit different. In one task, participant had 50 cents, and you could either give it all to the other participant, and then it would be multiplied, and then they would get something back. In the second task, they had anywhere between $0 and $9 to give to the other participants. You could give 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. That would be multiplied, and then they get something back or not. Okay, so in both tasks, they can give something, but in one of them, it's give everything or not, and the other task they can actually make a more precise decision about how much money they want to share with their output. And in both studies, they can also not share anything in a specific trial. So there are 80 trials, as I said, 80 different people per game, and the order of the profiles was randomized between subjects. So this is how the procedure looked. Each trial starts with a fixation point, then there is a prime, one of the 3 primes, so secure, insecure, neutral, there is a mask then. You see the profile for a second and a half on the screen, and then they have to press the button and make their decision. In this case, it's press 1 for the 50 cents, to give the 50 cents, and press 2 to keep the 50 cents.
Is that prime, is it fast enough to register consciously?
Yes, so this is a subliminal prime. This is actually a great question. So the reason why it's 60 milliseconds, this is 1 refresh rate. So it's going to stay for 1 refresh, full refresh on the screen, and there are many studies out there, using subliminal primes that they find an effect. Actually, our problem was that even with that short of a time, some participants could see it. So, and especially with, I'll mention later on with the imaging, this is when it's getting even more complicated when you go through the projector. But yeah, it does have an effect. Our hope was that it will suffer less from the effects of social desirability and stuff like that. This is why we use the subliminal prime. We didn't want people to think about, oh, the prime was the word love, so I need to give. We want it to be, in a way, neutral from their perspective. That's a good question. So the results for this study too, what we found was that there is a significant priming effect. Basically, when we prime them with a secure prime, they were more likely to give. You can see here, or if you got the numbers, if not, you can see it in the graph here. So this is a secure condition; they're more likely to give. And this is in the second test. You can be going from 0 to 9 on average. Participants gave 5.6 something. This is a neutral prime. And then you can see also in the insecure prime, the prime that is kind of like the anxiety dimension that we mentioned before, that even here there is a slight increase, but that was not significant. So the only significant difference is between the secure and the neutral conditions. Okay, so basically when you prime people with a sense of security, when you make them kind of lose the stress, right, this is when they're giving more money to the other person. Then we had 2 other studies. Study 3 and 4 are both about imaging. In study 3 we had about 7 participants. Study 4 we had about 24. And we're trying to look at the underlying mechanism. So we know that the security priming is working. The question is how. Right? So we have our assumptions about reduction of stress and how it's working and so on and so forth. So we didn't measure cortisol. Instead of that, we looked at the brain activity in 2 different ways. The nice thing about using both ERP and fMRI is that ERP gives you more of a temporal resolution, the fMRI gives you more of a spectral resolution, so you can see exactly where it is and you can figure out when it's happening, so it's nice to have both of the options. Participants basically completed the same set of reports measures, attachment, and so on and so forth, like in studies 1 and 2. And then in the ERP studies, for those of you who are doing ERP or know anything about ERP, we focus on specifically 2 components. One of them is the FN, and the other one is the P3, and I'll talk more about them in a second. And in study 4, which is the fMRI study, we're still analyzing the study. We didn't finish collecting the data for that. Actually, this is a study that we weren't paid for. We asked money, we didn't get it. So we got our imaging center, this is a hint, by the way. So we got our imaging center to give us some pilot testing money. So this one we have only about 20 participants. We would like to have 40, right? So we're still looking for charitable giving. So that's a little bit about the ERP components. So the FN, the feedback negativity, is something that appears whenever you're getting a feedback. Try to wrap your hand around that. In a way, if you're getting the money back from the other participant or not, this is kind of feedback, right? So you gave money, you were generous, you shared something with them, and then they are making the decision whether to give you or not. So it's kind of like giving you a feedback. Yes, I'm happy that you gave me, I'm giving you back, or no, I'm not happy, I want to keep it to myself, something like that. So whenever they're basically getting this feedback from the other person, we expected them to have this activity related to FN. And when they're not giving the money, obviously there won't be any feedback, right? If they're deciding not to give anything on this trial, there won't be any feedback coming back. And this is kind of a comparison. And for us, it was more like a manipulation check, if you may, at least as first. The P3 is more sensitive to the motivational aspects of the giving. So it's something that is very sensitive to the amount of money that is being lost or gained, right? So it's you know, how much you're kind of worried or concerned about the amount of money that you're exchanging here. So we use multi-level modeling to examine the effects of the prime, the trade attachment, the feedback, and the amount giving. The reason why we're using MLM is because if you think about that, we have the 80 trials nested within the subject, which are nested within the different conditions, the different primes that they're getting. Right? So this is a between subject design where some subjects are exposed to the security prime, some subjects are exposed to the neutral prime, and some are exposed to the insecurity prime. Right? So they have 3 groups. Within each group there are subjects. Within each subject there are the different trials. Each trial is a kind of a small little game. So this is why we had the 3 levels within the MLM. If you want to hear more, I'm happy to talk about that later on. And then we look specifically at whether or not we can predict the FN and P3 using that. So what we found was for the FN, we found, as we expected, there was a stronger FN whenever feedback was provided, right? So this is kind of supporting our methodology, if you may, or the fact that participant actually perceived it as a feedback from the partner, whether the partner gave or not, we got an FN. Interestingly for us was that attachment anxiety, right? So how anxious a person was positively related with the size of a fan. So the more anxious you are, and then again, attachment anxiety, it's this sense of insecurity, people are rejecting me, I'm not loved, I'm going to be rejected and stuff. The more anxious you are, the stronger a fan you see for these participants. And then there was also a two-way interaction of the prime and the amount given, again in the task of the 0 to 9. And the FN of the people who were part of the secure group was less affected by how much money they were losing or gaining. Okay, so again, if you go back to what Stefan said before, if you can reduce the stress, right, they're more likely to be in this generous mode, and this is exactly what we're seeing here. The people that were primed with a sense of security were less affected, their FN was less affected, right, by the amount of money that they had on the table. Okay? With the P3, it only happens when you have some kind of a win or loss task, as we expect to see when something actually happened, when they actually gave some money. And again, it was positively correlated with the amount given. So the more money they give, the stronger the P3 that we found. Okay? Which is kind of something that people before us found. But this happens only for people who are insecure. Right? In this case, it's mainly for avoidant people. And when they were in the insecure condition, when you prime them with a sense of insecurity. Okay, so this P3 is happening. They're more sensitive to wins and losses if they're insecure coming into the study and when we make them insecure. But if we prime them with a sense of security, this doesn't happen. So again, if you're taking away their sense of insecurity, right? Even if they came with insecurity from home, if you may, right? This doesn't happen. This is the graph from that. This is how much money they gave, right? And expected to get something in return. This is the P3 here, and you can see this is the insecure prime. So the insecure group, the more money they gave, the stronger the P3. This is the neutral group, no activity whatsoever, and then this is the secure group. That for them, actually, they were less worried, and even when they gave more money, they were less worried about that, and it didn't show as much of the P3 effect. We found that very interesting that this is what happened. I just want to mention briefly that we have another kind of like exploratory analysis. We're looking at the LPP. This is a bit of a different component. I won't get too much into that. It's again letting us see how in a way how happy they are about sharing the money, and we're seeing some similar effects to what we've seen before. But I'm happy to talk more with people about that since I'm running out of time. So what are the conclusions that we have? So insecurity in general, but especially avoidance, seems to be associated with less generosity. Security priming seems to increase the generosity and make people more generous. And it seems to be because it's dampened their sense of anxiety or stress or negative reaction to the money that they're losing or to the gambling in a way on the money. And these findings are in line with previous work that we did about other pro-social behaviors, caregiving and volunteerism and stuff like that, but also with electrophysiological research on decision making in general. And it's adding to the way that we understand of why security works the way it is and how can we make people feel more generous and behave more generously. And these are our grad students, Yana, Ashley, Ali, and Keith. And that's it. Thank you for supporting us, for listening to me today, and that's about it.